Alright, so this is sort of the first prototype of the Android app I've been developing based on the last couple of projects I've done. First, I made just in Kotlin a project which is represented in these files over here, basically just a to-do list app that also keeps track of your goals. I then tried to implement or integrate that with a Firestore database, and although those efforts were only somewhat successful, I then went ahead and tried to implement this into an Android app. So as far as I've gotten so far, you can see right over here, we've got the to-do list feature working. We don't have anything in goals yet, but for right now, we've just got a basic to-do list app in Android Kotlin. What's happening over here? So first of all, we have over here, you can see that we can make individual items and they can have descriptions and they can be checked off or not checked off. If we click on an individual item, we can see the description, we can see when it was created. We can go back and check it off from here, and we will see that it was completed on this date. Or we can also uncheck it from here, and that will be affected in both places. We could add a new to-do list item, like go to the gym, and we can add a description for it. And then we can see it down at the bottom of our list here. We can also edit existing descriptions, like for this one right here. We can say some of the things that we did. We implemented the view model and live data. And so we can go ahead and click save, and we'll see that that description got updated there, and we can actually check that off. So that's actually what I wanted to talk about next, just some of the code here. So the main thing that took up most of the time here was learning how to use a lot of Android's built-in libraries for simplifying a lot of the typical tasks, or the typical like obstacles that you overcome in Android development or any kind of app development. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about view model. So this is sort of an architectural concept that allows you to separate the view from the actual model. So the model is all of this data over here. You know, these tasks and to-dos, the actual logic of the program. We don't want to be handling that in the views themselves, and so the view model allows us to perform a lot of actions that stays consistent and maintains the state without having to maintain that logic within the view. So this view model right here holds a copy from the repository of a to-do list, and then it also holds each of those items individually, and it holds a currently selected item right here. And then it exposes a couple of methods here to allow the view to interact with them, like selecting a particular item will select that item, and then it will, so whenever any of these values get changed, any of this live data values, whenever those values get changed, any observers that have been bound to those values will also get updated. And so the observers are the actual items in the view. So we can take a look at that here by looking at the view code. So that starts with the main activity. This is the only thing the main activity is doing is supporting navigation. That's another component I had to learn how to use, is this navigation part of Android Jetpack, which just allows for navigating between components really easily. So going into and out of and between the different views of the application. So within that, within this main activity, basically all it does is it hosts right here this fragment in the middle, which gets changed, or which basically stores whichever fragments we want to show based on the navigation at the current time. So one of those fragments is just this to-do one right here, which is the list right here. It has a recycler view, which is handling making all of these little cards, and what's happening is it creates that recycler view right about here by using an adapter. And so this adapter is right here. This is where the bulk of the work is happening in terms of just being able to display that list. It has this view holder, which represents a single one of those little card views, and then it's got methods for what happens when it gets created and what happens when it's time to bind data. So that's the most important thing right here, is when we bind data, we're going to just set some on-click listeners, one for the checkbox and one for the card itself. But then right here is what I was talking about with the live data. this is where we are able to observe the live data, which means that anytime that the user is able to check off an item, no matter where they are, so whether they did that from inside the to-do, like the edit and create page, or the full list page, no matter where they changed the data, it will get properly updated in the list. And so that's what all of this code does here. We've also got the view for the fragment where you can create or edit new to-dos, and it similarly has to set on-click listeners, as well as observe the live data. That's happening here with this model. This is getting a copy of the view model, which is right here, this to-do view model. We already took a look at that, and it gets that by using Kotlin's expression here, this by syntax. And that's this whole, the code for that is provided by Jetpack. That's kind of the bulk of the Android app, like the code that I wrote on that side of things. There's also all sorts of layouts here. There's this one for an individual list item. One thing that you may have noticed is that when there's no description, it only shows up with just a title. But when there is a description, which is right here, right now it's hidden, but when there's a description, it will show up and extend the view of the card, as you can see right here. We've also got the fragment for the list itself, which just holds that recycler view and the little floating action button, and then one for the edit page, which looks like this. Again, this date completed only shows up when it has already been completed, otherwise it doesn't show up. So that's kind of a brief overview of this Android app that I've made. It is just barely a prototype, and there's a lot more work to do to get it to be useful, but it is what it is, and I've learned a lot about Android in the process. So thank you for watching.